All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Tonight is Sunday, August 22nd, 2021, and this is your evening tropical update. Well, tonight we have Henri now firmly ashore here in the southern New England region. He made landfall this morning at about 11:30 along the coast of Rhode Island. Maximum sustained winds were around 65 miles an hour, and the system tonight has quickly lost its definition on satellite as it's kind of wrapping up in this trough, digging into it. Most of the rainfall has shifted a bit south of the center, but the storm is generally in this region and will pretty much stall throughout the night tonight and will take until tomorrow afternoon before Henri gets back underway and moves on out to sea. So we look at some of the current situation. Most of the rainfall now tonight across New York and New Jersey. This is Mark Nissenbaum's side at Florida State, and you can see while the center looks like it's more up towards Massachusetts and Connecticut tonight, most of the rainfall wrapping around to the south into parts of New York and New Jersey, where heavy rainfall appears to be falling this evening across this area. But drier conditions actually for much of the regions that got hammered earlier today. Power outages tonight about 100,000 roughly, 63,000 in Rhode Island, 24,000 in Connecticut, and then Massachusetts and New York about another 10,000. So roughly 100,000, which really isn't all that bad in the grand scheme of things. Henri never really got a chance to strengthen, as we talked about yesterday, and the system never really took off. It was a minimal hurricane, hit that cold water, and then it came down a little bit. But winds were still pretty brisk. I mean, we had wind gusts up to 70 miles an hour in Rhode Island, mostly upper 60s for Rhode Island, about 50s and 60s for a lot of the other regions, and then 40s, even into parts of like New Hampshire, as those winds kind of spread out. So these sort of wind gusts are definitely enough to take down trees, power outages, etc., etc. So definitely a windy, kind of rough day, but not as bad as it could have been. Observed rainfall totals from the Eastern Region headquarters of the National Weather Service shows isolated rainfall totals tonight up to 10 inches across central New Jersey, well away. And the center came in over here, and this is where your heaviest rainfall has been. A pre a pre-landfall sort of event led to some more heavy rain through parts of New York City and another down in southern New Jersey. And you also had the heavier rain right where the center came ashore. So definitely some totals in that 4 to 6 inch range and localized totals up to 10 inches, and still some more heavy rainfall in the forecast for the next 24 hours or so, as we do expect that rainfall to keep falling another anywhere from 3 to 6 inches, very possible, through parts of New York, western Connecticut, western Massachusetts, and parts of northern New Jersey, even into parts of Pennsylvania. So definitely the rainfall totals have not ended, and the flooding threat most certainly has not ended, because although the rain is still falling, you also have all those creeks and things like that. Creeks, rivers, streams, etc., will begin to fill and swell and overspill their normal boundaries, because that rainfall typically takes a couple days to work into all those areas and drain. So a lot of times, the rain falls, you have flash flooding, the rain ends, the sun comes out, and then all the creeks and rivers and estuaries and things like that begin to flood. So keep that in mind over the next couple days, as the flooding threat will last into the week here in the New England region. All right, let's go ahead and turn our attention from Henri deck to the rest of the tropics. And you can see the Hurricane Center's map pretty quiet this evening. A tropical depression Henri now, as I should have mentioned, no longer a tropical storm. And we also have this one area of interest. We'll go back out to the main satellite feed, and this is a wave tonight located in the main development region, a little tropical entity here that should be pulling a little bit more northward in the coming days, steering out of the tropical trade winds. Hurricane Center not very excited about, just a 10% chance of development through later in the week. Typically out here, conditions are a little drier and conditions aren't usually as favorable, Henri. And typically systems out here also like to turn to sea, Henri. Not really playing ball, but hopefully this one does, unlike Henri did. So that's the only thing on the Hurricane Center's actual map. But I do want to go ahead and talk about what we could be seeing down in the Western Caribbean next week. So we have a very active monsoon trough in this region, and there's a lot of tropical moisture. We had Grace move through a couple days ago. You have this upper low kind of spinning up some more tropical moisture, and you have two tropical waves starting to juice up the atmosphere. So what's happening down here in the Western Caribbean Central America region, is the atmosphere is really kind of getting juiced up. And later on in the week, this tropical wave, which is currently located near the Antilles tonight, this is analyzed well by the Hurricane Center's Tropical Analysis Forecast branch. You can see this tropical wave right here at about 60 west is generally going to move through the Caribbean this week, and by late week should be in the vicinity of the Western Caribbean. And computer models are picking up on the potential for some development. So I'm going to go ahead and back this up. So you can see here GFS relative humidity and 700 millibar winds model showing a lot of relative humidity in this region, no doubt about it. A lot of tropical moisture as we go through the week. But kind of want to pay attention as we go through the week. Let's go ahead and skip ahead to Thursday, where our wave has kind of picked up some steam and is moving into the region, and still a lot of moisture. And as we go later on in the week, we can see here that you'll see this wave begin to develop towards the weekend near the Yucatan Peninsula. This is valid early on Saturday, and then potentially we'll have a system moving into the Gulf early next week, or maybe possibly late into the weekend. Now that this model, this run of the GFS does show the system going into Mexico, but I don't want to worry too much about that, because the general pattern of, hey, there's going to be something developing in the Western Caribbean, and it will be generally moving to the west or the northwest, which is going to put the Western Gulf of Mexico, that's mostly Louisiana and Texas, on notice. These sort of systems typically are broad, they're messy, they're large, but they have a lot of juice. I mean, look at the moisture associated with this thing. There's a ton of tropical moisture in tow. These typically don't want to spin up very fast, but they can be impressive storms once they get going, and they need to be watched carefully this week, as it looks like the Gulf Coast could have something to deal with towards the weekend. So we'll track that. The Hurricane Center will probably have something on their map in a day or so about it, and we'll be carefully keeping our eyes on this as we go into the weekend. But otherwise, it looks like it's going to be a fairly quiet week out in the Atlantic Basin. There's a little bit of suppression from a Kelvin wave passing, so it looks like we're going to have to wait till probably the first week of September to really get the basin back awake, but that doesn't mean something closer to shore, such as what we just talked about, couldn't still spin up. Let's go ahead and look at the Eastern Pacific Basin, where we do have two areas of interest tonight. Well, this one right here, the 90% chance area, is what was left of Hurricane Grace, the landfall from a couple days ago, that has moved through and has now exited into the Eastern Pacific. We told you it was very possible she'd reform, and it looks pretty good. This is what's left of Grace. A very nice mid-level center. Not quite low-level yet. It's not quite a tropical system again, but this is the remnants of. Now, this will be named Marty in the Eastern Pacific. This is the next name on the list, and this has lost its low-level circulation, so it's no longer the entity that was Grace. So in this basin, it'll pick up a name from the new list, and it become a new tropical system as it moves off to the west. It should be moving away from land and won't bother anybody. And another area of low pressure down here by Central America will gradually move up the coast in the coming days. Should eventually break out of the monsoon trough and become yet another storm as the Eastern Pacific stays busy this season. We have the Central Pacific Hurricane Center not reporting anything tonight, which is a little odd, because if you look at the satellite presentation near Hawaii, we have what is left of what was Hurricane Linda moving through as a very well-defined low-level vortex. Not a lot of convection near the center, but there is some convective activity to the north. I would call this a tropical system, and it probably is a tropical storm. I'm not sure why we're ignoring it, but hey, we're not. This will actually move right through the Hawaiian Islands this week and produce some gusty winds and some more rainfall. Not a major event. The convection is pretty limited with this. It's really just on that northern edge of the circulation center, but still worth mentioning. And I'm not sure why our map is blank tonight, but that's what we're going with. So not sure what that is, but Hawaii, keep a lookout. Linda's passing by, and we'll give you a little taste of something as she moves through. Let's move over to the Western Pacific Basin, where all we have is pitiful little tropical storm Emmaus, a system that's pretty weak and will be moving into South Korea tomorrow. Not going to be a big impact, should be weakening, and should be a tropical depression by then. It's just going to be some rainfall. And it's been a quiet year in the Western Pacific, man. I tell you what, I mean, the numbers are pretty crazy. This is the Colorado State University Tropical Cyclone Tracker, and you can see named storms. They've actually been above average in terms of purely named storms, but you start going into the hurricanes, 7.1, which would be the normal amount of hurricanes at this point in the season, only 4. They're about half away on hurricane days and less than a third of the way on major hurricanes so far to date. And if you look at the actual numbers, this is really impressive, because Surigay, which was a 900 millibar monster Category 5 super typhoon in April, which was the strongest on record in April, I think in any basin. It was the strongest April storm we've ever seen, period, which formed April 14th to the 25th. If you take that complete anomaly out, it has been just a desert out here this season. And for the actual ACE tracker, which is accumulated cyclone energy for the basin, ACE is the combination of a storm's life cycle, the longevity of the storm, and the strength of the storm. It better quantifies, like last year in the Atlantic Basin before we had like Laura, we had a bunch of like these weaker storms that never really did much. So we had like, oh, we have 15 named storms. Oh no, but they're all like 13 of them are garbage, weak storms that don't do anything. ACE can kind of help you sift through that and quantify your statistics a little better. If Surrogate didn't exist, I mean, the Eastern Pacific would be, as I tune my marker back down, would be something like here at this point. Now they're up here because of Surrogate, but if they weren't, uh, it'd be pretty weak sauce. So this part of the basin just been dead quiet. It wasn't that great last year either. It's been a lucky streak out there for a year or two for the most part. So a bit of good news there, but overall, just an interesting start to the season while both the Atlantic and Eastern Pacific basins do remain well above average for this time of year. So, guys, what I got for you this evening on your tropical update for YouTube, we'll probably not going to talk for a couple days. We'll talk later in the week as our central, American gyre type pattern sort of comes together, and we see what we have in the Western Caribbean later in the week. And until then, thanks for watching. Stay safe, and we'll talk soon. Have a good one.